So just to let folks know, my name is Dan LaSota. I'm an instructional designer at UAF eLearning, and I'm accompanied by Owen Guthrie, who's also works at UAF eLearning as an instructional designer. We're broadcasting this live out to UAF eLearning's YouTube channel, and so if folks weren't able to make today's session, they can just go to our link and watch the video and see what we had to say. I'm wondering, so we have some prepared slides and some content we'd like to share with you, but we're also able to customize it, and we certainly hope there's some discussion. Amanda, I'm wondering if you could just take a moment to share with us how many folks are in the room, and maybe if people want to just quickly say what kind of interest they have and why they wanted to attend our presentation on the budget model.
Perfect, sounds good. So we have 5 or 6 people in the room with us, and we'll just kind of start around. He's interested in knowing what brought you to the presentation today.
I teach Alaska Studies for junior and senior. I'm going to do this next month or so with a unit on how would you guys solve the budget model with you tax for different DFPs.
Okay. So can you hear that at all?
No,
Dan?
I wasn't
Okay.
able to hear that.
So we're gonna test this out a little bit with some microphones for them in just a second. But in the meantime, I'll relay what she had to say, and that's that she's an Alaska Studies teacher, and so she wants to do a unit in the next month or so that kind of tackles some of these budgetary issues that are coming up, and so that's why she's here today.
Hi, I'm a government and Alaska Studies teacher, so looking for potential lesson ideas, and also just here as a citizen of the state of Alaska to educate myself on the process and how I might be able to be more effectively involved.
Great, and
So,
if they could say where they're from too.
Okay.
I'm from Saldana, the Keys.
Saldana, okay.
And where were you? And she's from. And the first person was from Tok.
Tok, okay, great, thanks.
Okay.
Sure.
See if that helps with the microphone.
Jim Engel from Petersburg. I teach Alaska Studies and American Government. And I'm kind of with the other two that spoke so far, looking for ideas of how to implement this into the classroom.
Great.
Cindy Fry with Petersburg also, and I teach alternative education, so I have middle school and high school students, and this has been a pretty hot topic, just how things are changing in our state, and also the use of resources and revenue, and so it's been a really great conversation, so more resources here.
Okay.
My name is Brian Clark. I also teach government out in Cordova. I got a lucky chance of lobbying in Congress with the school board down in Juneau, and so it's pretty exciting stuff to see what's going on down there.
Okay. Anyone else in the room?
No, that's it. And this is Keith Samudio, and I'm just facilitating and making sure that things go well and being back up. So, hi, Dan.
Hi, glad to hear from you, Keith.
Thanks.
Well, I'm gonna turn it over to Owen here, and he's gonna begin with a little bit of how UAF got involved in this this project and describe it a little. And there's the preview of along the bottom there of the topics we'll cover, and we'll hope to make this as interactive and useful to you as possible. Owen?
Yeah, absolutely. So really nice to meet all you folks, and thanks for coming today. The most important thing for us is that you get the answers you're interested in, and that we help you in any way we can. So please don't hesitate to stop or interrupt or yell. And you know, the inherent limitations of this medium, we'll try and supersede those just by brute force, if nothing else. So basically, I think you seem to all have a handle on what an interesting and engaging topic this is and how timely it is for the classroom. And that's where it began when it came to us. We were, you know, Alaska is a small place, and the former chancellor of UAF was a good friend of the governor, and also when our former VP of Finance, our associate chancellor or vice chancellor, Pat Bittney, went to become the head of the OMB for the state, there was still that connection there. And I think that when they started, you know, coming to grips with the fiscal crisis, they started thinking about, well, how can we engage Alaskans in the conversation? That became one of the really big questions, is how can we build awareness? Because ultimately, as most of you folks know, teaching Alaska Studies and Government, This is a political problem as much as it is a fiscal problem. So they approached us and said, hey, would you be interested in talking about us or brainstorming with us for some game ideas? The chancellor knew that UAF e-learning sort of is a repository of people who think about how to engage people, how to build interest for tough topics, topics that are deep, but maybe lowering access to get more people involved. So we turned over the idea for a game a bit. Meanwhile, the State of Alaska Office of Management and Budget, or the Budget Office, had put together this model, and we're going to show the model in a few minutes. It's an Excel model. You can play with the little cells and manipulate Alaska's fiscal future. And they were thinking about a game, and it really doesn't lend itself very well to a game activity because there's so many ways to cheat, basically. But what it does lend itself really well to is maybe a role-playing activity or some sort of a discussion exercise. So we said, well, why don't we help you put together some curriculum materials, and those might become available to people from the state of Alaska. So we worked with first thing we did is create a small video, which some of you may have seen. We can show you that in a minute. It's an animated video. One of our designers put it together. It's about 2 or 3 minutes long, and it's very quick and easy. But it took about a month to make that video. It actually took a while. Just to be clear, the governor's office didn't pay us or anything like that. With a lot of evenings and weekends, my father-in-law is the voice on the video. People were donating a lot of time. It's an effort of passion, right? We're Alaskans. This is what we'd like to see all of our future be as have as much potential for fiscal health as possible. So a lot of donated time. We put together the video, and then we started to work on this K-12 lesson plan idea. And so we worked with a couple of educators here in Fairbanks. Joy Hannibal Grubus is her name. Joy Grubus Kennedy is her name. And also Mr. Tom Kennedy here at West Valley High School in Fairbanks. And just because while we know, we both have done some time working in the K-12 environment, we maybe didn't know as much of what they're looking for in terms of standards and actual actionable lesson plans, things that actually translate well to the classroom, right? We can envision students would do this, but whether or not your junior and high school students would actually do that effectively in a given amount of time was a question. So they helped us develop these lesson plans, and then they sort of we went down to Anchorage to the social studies meeting there. They had the district-wide social studies conference where we presented some of those materials. Got some great feedback. I think we presented them to about 60 or 70 educators there. And we actually got a few people involved, and that's sort of our long-term vision. Is it'd be great if this effort grew beyond us. We're inherently limited, but there's a lot of really smart educators out there in Alaska, a lot of great students who can contribute to the conversation, who can contribute materials to keep it updated and fresh. So we put together this website, which houses the model, it houses the educational materials, and it gives educators and students a place to share their products, because ultimately any one of us can come up with a solution, but we felt the most benefit for the state of Alaska would be people sharing back their solutions and maybe challenging legislators to offer their solution, or at least be witness to the ideas and suggestions that Alaska students and educators have. So,
and Owen, we did have some success with that in Fairbanks. Some of our local legislators came and visited Joy's classroom at West Valley and helped judge the students' interpretations of the budget without any bias there. They were just, their understanding of things. I was wondering if you think it'd be good to show Sean's introduction model that he worked basically a month through with lots of revisions that describes the budget model. And
yeah, do you have that?
I'm getting lots of thumbs up. They want to see it.
Great.
All right, I'm going to try and play it here. And tell me if it works. I'm just using the Hangout tool.
Sounds good. He's working on his screen, right? Trying to.
That is the expression.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
How we all look.
Yes. Nope, nothing. I'll try it. Somehow you muted their mics. Okay, there.
No,
Okay.
I muted it because they were chatting about the ideas in here, and we didn't want to
Okay.
interrupt you guys.
Very good. I'll see if I can pull it up here real quick.
Awesome, thanks.
Try on this end. Lesson plan resources.
I added YouTube as one of the tools for the Hangout.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So here we go. All right. So let me see if I can share this now. Okay. See if this is going to work for you guys. Let's see. I think I'll be able to tell. Now, if you click on the little Alaska state flag thing down there, Dan, you might have to click on that to get that to be the broadcast window. Whenever you start it. Click on my shared window. Did you get anything there?
It sounds a little muted. Yeah, this isn't quite coming through.
Okay, let's do it this way. Let's just send them the URL and they can watch it on there and they have a computer there.
Good idea. Perfect.
Okay, I'm going to chat it to you in the Hangout.
Awesome, thanks.
It's there.
Do you see that in your chat tool?
Mm-hmm.
All right. We'll take a moment for you guys to go ahead and watch that.
It's only 2 minutes and 20
All
seconds.
right, give me just a second. I'm going to mute us for you guys so that you don't have to listen to that. One second.
Okay.
All right, you guys, that was awesome. So the audience participants that are here, there's a couple of more that have come in. So you guys, we're going to send around a list of, and if you guys will forward me your email, then I'd be happy to share both the Google Hangout on Air link for you guys so you can rewatch this at any time. Also the video link that he just sent me, which has the link to the document in it. So if you want all the resources from this presentation, please add your name to the list. All right, guys, feel free to take it over.
Okay, great. So that video and a whole bunch of other content is located on a website that we put together, and I just sent that to you via chat. It's called akfiscalfuture.org, and that's where our idea for this community resides. So what I thought I'd do now is just take a little guided tour of that site and talk to you a little bit about what's there and what's not there. And it's our entire intent from the beginning is not to own this content, but to say, okay, here's the framework for content with some really basic foundational pieces that people can add to, augment as they like, and hopefully build sort of a community interested in sharing content related to this. So let me grab my screen again here.
Oh, and why don't I suggest that you just keep talking and I'll move to the parts on the website for you.
Okay. Okay. Very good. So that's Alaska's Fiscal Future website. And on the upper left-hand side, there's a menu item called Budget Models. There are two main budget models that were out when we constructed this resource. The first is the Alaska Revenue and Expenditure Model that you just saw the video about. You can download the model there at that link. That's the model that was put together by the governor's office.
It's an Excel spreadsheet, so
yeah.
It needs Microsoft Excel or something very close to it. I don't think like OpenOffice will work because it runs all the macros.
It needs an updated version of Excel to run. The other model, and it's very simple, and we felt it's probably the best for high school tool type users. It's simple, but it still can be kind of complicated. There's a lot of options in there. And this is some screenshots from ICER's model. That's the Institute for Socioeconomic Research at UAA. These models you can use. We got some criticism in the press for our event in Anchorage by folks saying that we were facilitating the governor's agenda by using the model produced by the administration. So we said, fine, we'll make all the models available. It's really up to you. The point is to get students thinking about the choices. That's what economics is about, and that's what our idea was. So those two models are supported. The lesson plans, if Dan, you'll go to that top lesson plan link there. I'm not sure. My desk and Dan's are nearby, so I can kind of look over and throw a wad of paper at him. So yeah, there's lesson plans. So that we developed two lesson plans. These are just embedded Google Docs. There's a link to the full Google Doc, so you can take it, you can modify it, you can do whatever you like. You can add comments to it that we can get feedback on. But our basic idea was that there were sort of two options based on how much time you had in your classroom. One is an intensive sort of final project model where it takes maybe 2 weeks of instruction and activities, culminating in this final project where the students present their solution to Alaska's fiscal future using the model. And the other, and that's what we're scrolling down through now, and I'll describe that in just a second. And the other one is a much lighter version of it called the light model, or the light plan, and it's sort of a 3 or 4 classroom day version with much more abbreviated assignments. And that's what Dan's whipping through there now, 3 to 4 days. And we developed these in conjunction with the folks down at West Valley. I want to make sure that that's clear, that we had actual people who teach econ, advanced, or AP econ, and Alaska Studies work with us to develop these lesson plans. So just briefly, the sort of the workflow of the full plan, we thought, well, wouldn't it be neat if we put students in the role of having to make these decisions? So this summer, there were some folks who there was a summit here in Fairbanks where prominent folks in the state administration gave some presentations on the topic, and they talked about, it was Gunnar Knapp and the head of the revenue for the state, and Pat Pitney, head of the budget, and another economist, I don't remember right now. They gave 4 presentations, and what we did is we took those presentations and their PowerPoint slides, and we broke them into basically 6 separate presentations. So our vision was you as an educator could break your students into 6 groups, have the students digest the content after they sort of watch the introductory video, and you give them some lecture content so they understand all the different aspects, or begin to understand some of them, and then they in turn present those back to their peers, and their peers sort of evaluate their presentations. Once they've gone through that process, so they begin to understand sort of all the different variables and aspects and different aspects of the budget that are contentious. That's what I was looking for. Then they actually start working with the model themselves and eventually culminate each group in solving the project and then justifying their solutions and then posting that back to the website. And we have a place, if you click over, there's a share drop down right there, share your budget solution, or for an educator, you could, if you wanted to add more content to the site, you could share your classroom materials there. And you can see we've had 25 student groups share their solution, and this was just sort of a first try. It may not be the best way to do it, but we felt the students needed to share those out in some sort of public way, and we were fortunate to have a state senator and 2 state representatives come and watch the student final presentations, and I think that was really valuable. It was valuable for the legislator, and it was also very valuable for the students to have that sort of authentic assessment, because they gave the students some real feedback as to what was politically workable, what was not. Did they consider this option? Did they not? And dispel a few myths too. A lot of myths where there, students would say, "Oh, well, this won't be politically viable," and the legislator was able to say, "Well, actually, you wouldn't think so, but we have heard a lot of support for that option in a couple of cases." So it was really a very valuable and rewarding experience. On the website, there's also some resources. There's one more tab, which we don't need to go back to, but it includes things like links to the presentations that I mentioned, including all their PowerPoint slides. Yeah, Dan's going to go there now. Under the resources at the top, there you go, presentations. There's 6 PowerPoint presentations in there. There's the 4 recorded talks. There's a vocabulary game, a quiz. And then at the very bottom, resources link contains all of the educational standards, relevant educational standards. So yeah, these are the slides we put together for students to use.
And Owen, I just put in the chat, or a little bit while ago, Gunnar Knapp produced a short budget video. It's about 6 minutes in length, and it might be a great way to start an introduction to the unit, so students can just readily see the difficulties that the legislators are facing right now. This is principally what they're going to be talking about for the next 60 days or so.
Yeah, our goal was to put together enough materials to scaffold student understandings to the point where they could start to digest and deliver the information on their own and start to make decisions. And there's an assignment in there where we have them go home and talk to their parents and ask what solutions their parents would suggest after explaining what they know about the materials, and maybe talk to a local business owner or talk to someone else in their community. So that's all in the full lesson plan. In the short one, we omitted that sort of the outreach component of it. So that's just sort of a brief overview of what's on the site. Now, what's not on the site is that these materials now are from September or so. So they're becoming a little bit, some aspects are dated. Again, they're talking about the model itself is built for $40 a barrel oil. Inconceivable that oil would ever go below $40 a barrel. Even at the time they were solving it in December, it was at $42 a barrel, and that was quite humorous that it was that low, but it's, of course, far lower than that now. So I just thought to take a break to see if anybody has any questions at this point.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah.
So I'll walk the microphone around to them when they have questions. So.
Thanks, Amanda.
So you guys, what questions do you guys have for them so far? I know they're accessing the website and.
Great.
And obviously this is all new to me. I haven't had a chance to go through any of the materials or not. But for example, if I was to implement this in my class, it'd probably be next year. Do you see that it would still, like, I mean, is this kind of time-sensitive stuff that, in a year or two would then be as relevant or would work as well, or is it or not necessarily?
I think there's going to be elements that are going to be very time-sensitive. Like some of the PowerPoint slides are going to be a little bit dated. But I think the conversation, the ultimate underlying conversation about economic choices we make as citizens, as a state, those are going to remain as timely as ever. There's articles in the Newsminer or the newspaper, whatever your local newspaper, the ADN or whatever is local, that are going to, facilitate and support that conversation for your students. Just about every day there's something in the newspaper. So if you're kind of working along through the term with your students, and a lot of the oil production numbers are going to be readily available, and that's why we sort of hope this is a framework for educators to share if they're interested. You can certainly go it alone, and I think use these materials. The basic structure of the lesson plan can be translated anytime. What's going to start to date a little bit are those presentation pieces.
There's a lot of value in going through some of the models, even if they don't have the current price of oil, because there's value in just going to see like how high you'd have to make oil to make it balance out the way we had been balancing budgets in the past couple of years. There's a lot of mathematical components to it as well, interpreting data on graphs and applying it and running models out for different years and that sort of thing. So, but we took a lot of effort in aligning it to the existing state standards in social studies with the help of the Fairbanks teachers.
I think aspects of the lesson plan that have to do with talking about what are the different effects of different types of taxes on a community. How does that change the structure, the economic structure of the state, whether it's a regressive tax or income tax, or whether it's maybe we just want to target seasonal workers. Well, how can we structure that? All of those choices. A lot of people are under a lot of misconceptions, like, oh, why don't we just tax marijuana and then we're going to solve all our problems? But if you actually start to look at, that's maybe $10 million, maybe as much as $20 million, and it's it's not even 100th or 1,000th of what the kind of money we need. So good question, and I think that certainly in an economics classroom or Alaska Studies classroom, in government classrooms, this topic it's like an open laboratory. Alaska is in the middle of restructuring ourselves as a state, and how we have to kind of conceive of, okay, what does our future look like now that the allowance is being cut off? So I think it's a fantastic curriculum opportunity.
I think the biggest opportunity is just the ongoing engagement of what's happening down in Juneau, and a continuing engagement of testimony and legislator statements. And even if your classroom time doesn't align exactly with particular committee hearings, all of those hearings are available on audio directly off the state's website. And we just got a public announcement from the governor's office this morning, Senate Bill 134, which addresses income tax credits. There's 2 hearings, one tomorrow. They're both at 6 p.m. and the following day. And your chances of getting students to listen to that live might be slim, but you can always go and download the audio file and play back particular parts if you wish to your class, or give them an assignment to do that. So that might be a way to stage it in your classroom when you can't do it live.
Awesome, thank you. Are there more questions at this time? Got one coming. Hold on one sec.
Do they hear me, or do you repeat?
They can usually hear if you speak right in the microphone.
Hey guys.
Yes, hi.
So I'm wondering, I noticed the other day the legislature was asking the heads of the department, the current heads of the Department of Education, to justify their existence as a department. And I wonder if the model includes things like, what would it look like if we just deleted the Department of Education from the budget?
It does. It does. What it allows you to do is make both short-term and long-term adjustments to the state budget. So, for instance, you could cut it. There are two sides to the model. One is revenue, so you could have all these different tax options, all the different oil options, every conceivable revenue option. The cutting options are a little more simplified. It allows you to, say, cut a percentage per year or cumulative. So every year you could raise it or lower it for 20 years. I think it goes to 2035. So you can decide, okay, well, we're going to cut, say, 100,000 from education or 5% from education and roll that out over the 20 years or whatever you like. Yeah. and have that conversation. Some of the students, you know, at West Valley, it was interesting, just a sort of anecdotal story. Some of the students said, you know, we should cut this Department of Education by, I can't remember what it was, 200 million or something like that, and consolidate all these rural schools. And the legislator who was in the room said, yeah, that's great, I understand that, because, you know, those are very expensive schools to have out in these rural locations, and if we consolidated, we could save some money. He said, but how would you feel here in Fairbanks if we told you that you had to go to Anchorage to go to school? That, you know, that we were going to close the Fairbanks schools and all the schools were in Anchorage because it makes more fiscal sense. And that started a pretty good conversation. And I think that's maybe the most value is each of these, the model, the exercises, the talking to parents, the talking to community members, it's just really jumping off points for the students to be put in the role of legislators and making their own decisions. In fact, one of the suggested optional assignments for the full plan is to have sort of a mock legislature at the end of the unit where you assign students sort of roles or parties or allow them to self-identify with what their personal views are and have those conversations there in the classroom, and then come up with one unified budget as a classroom rather than in, you know, groups of 2 and 3.
I'm looking at the spreadsheet.
Hang on, he's going to hand the microphone right back to you. 1 second, guys. We're going to continue that question.
Okay.
No. There you go.
Sorry. So I'm looking at the spreadsheet. Maybe you can tell us where we would go to. I didn't see the video, or I saw the video maybe, but I had not seen.
Yeah, let me, I'm going to open up Excel here, and hopefully you'll be able to see my screen clear enough.
And I'll share all the resources that they shared with us, including the introductory video that showed where to find it and all that kind of
I
stuff.
downloaded this workbook from the ASTE website.
Okay.
All the problems.
Awesome.
The delete button.
So I would also point out that on the page, so Dan is actually showing you the model itself now, but there's also a video that, it's like a 5-minute video or a 4-minute video for students that shows you how to use the model. And that's a really nice instructive piece too.
So this is the first page of the governor's model from back in the fall, and your first choice is a question of whether you want detailed or simple. So I'm just going to jump over to detailed, and now let me resize the screen. I'm hoping you're able to see that.
You can probably see the colored blocks, but not the text.
Yeah,
that's fine.
That I downloaded from the ASTE.
Right. So I'm running an actual version of Excel here. So on the right-hand side, you get it's a trade-off between real estate and legibility here. On the left-hand side, you're getting all of your the income or the revenue, and your question was about particular departmental budgets. So on the right-hand side, we have education and early development, and with drop-downs, I can add 30% or 26%. And the nice thing is, as you do that, it affects the graphs of the balances. So let's say we want to cut the budget by 30%. And the graph is cruel. It has no, you get an immediate sense of what happens to the numbers. The real conversation comes into when you talk with people that depend upon those services. And that's your responsibility. I mean, you have to foster those kind of communications or those kind of discussions with your students. The graph also, or the budget model tool also has a crude way, or I should say a simple way, of giving you an indication of whether you've balanced the budget or not. So right now, the background color behind the three charts is red, meaning the budget's not in balance. And one of the immediate learning outcomes here is that you realize how hard it is to balance the budget. I mean, there's no easy choices. There's no magic bullets. You have to do lots of things that you don't want to do in order to get the budget into the green.
You can clearly cut all of the state departments to zero, and you still doesn't balance. And
yeah, that's the probably the best lesson there is you can cut everything to zero.
So just one second, gentlemen.
Yeah.
So some of you downloaded the model.
Mhm.
Do you have the full model where you're able to manipulate it the way they're describing here? Some yes, some no.
The tabs show up on the bottom. They show up after you select detailed or simple.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Just wanted to check with the audience, check in with them, and make sure they
Thank you.
all were able to follow.
Thank you.
Right, and those tabs are very helpful for people who aren't familiar with the various enterprise funds and expenditures and what they mean. I mean, some of it is actually pretty complicated, and I learned a lot just from, looking at the tabs and hearing some of the economists and revenue commissioners speak. But in your classroom, they don't have that benefit unless they go and watch those videos, and it's reinforced here.
So one of our, it'd be great to find, I know the two educators here in Fairbanks are sort of interested in, as time allows, they're way over busy as all sort of high school educators are, grading papers evenings and weekends and everything, but I think they're interested in helping sort of keep this content current and contribute to it. So if anybody in the room there is interested in that same spirit, we'd be happy to help facilitate those connections. And right now, this site is just a publicly hosted WordPress site. I'm the current owner, but I'm happy to give other people access who have WordPress proficiency, or they can email us content and we'll keep it updated. We'd just really like to see the conversation continued and shared.
Maybe we could take a stab at if anyone's envisioning any kind of difficulties in kind of conducting lessons like this in their class, or given that we are instructional designers, we're often, let me say, we can sometimes find clever solutions to perceived problems. Maybe if there's any questions along those lines.
Okay. So, participants, do you guys foresee issues or problems about delivering this kind of content in your classroom, and so they are interested in problem solving with you if you have something that's on the forefront of your brain?
The tax structure is such that most people probably don't. The tax structure is such that most people probably don't even understand all the different layers of taxes within state, corporate tax, all the different resource-based tax. For us in Petersburg, oil taxing or taxing oil corporations isn't a big deal, but obviously raw fish tax is a big deal. A port with a lot of fish coming in. How do you? What would be a way you could help kids as they begin to go through the revenue options and understand that?
I think it's funny. That's a great question. It's funny, the kids in Fairbanks here all thought, well, let's raise taxes on fishing. It's regional, right? And that's an interesting conversation, like, to engage them in, like, well, so at Cordova or wherever, a fishing town, they have a very different perspective on what that means locally, and opening up that conversation to say, okay, what, if you put them in a mock debate situation, okay, your legislature from here, what would be your three, priorities in terms of what your constituency wants to see? You're from the interior. What are your, three top priorities? You're from maybe rural Western Alaska district. What about the dividend? That's much more important rurally potentially than it is in an urban setting.
One of the other things that I picked up from hearing presentations and watching the students offer ideas was that, generally human nature, we want to tax the other guy or something that doesn't affect me. So it's good to try and get folks that have different interests together so that they can see that these other departmental budgets do have constituencies. And I think another key concept to get across is that not all of the revenues have equal costs of administration. So for instance, putting a state property tax on folks, that has a cost of administration. The state would have to hire a bunch of assessors, for instance, which they're not set up to do that. Sales tax has a different cost of administration than income tax does, and so those finer details of budget understanding are things that people on the finance committees and subcommittees are wrestling with, and that commissioners will give testimony to. But it'd be nice to raise the level of conversation from just tax the fishermen to what's actually the cost of taxing the fishermen, and how much potential revenue would we get to that, and how many jobs would that cost. So those are some of the things that you can have your students consider.
And I think part of it is maybe relaxing back a little bit from the specifics. Like, the specifics are there, which makes great content and great material to talk about. But what your objectives ultimately, in our case, locally here in the classrooms, was get students to understand that it's a physical problem, but it's mostly a political problem. And the dimensions to the political problem have to do with these regional isolated perspectives. So getting them to sort of raise their awareness of those aspects of the problem. First of all, the objective is awareness of the problem, awareness that, well, there's not one easy solution. It's going to take a combination of solutions, and that those involve some serious political hurdles that we may or may not be able to overcome. But what's at stake for us as a state. And those learning objectives are very much within reach, even though, I mean, let's face it, sitting in a room with the three legislatures, there were things in the presentation that they weren't aware of. Detailed of aspects of Alaska's fiscal situation that there's just so many complicated bits. But overall, the learning outcome is pretty easy to obtain. Students can understand that, well, my parents have this perspective, but this student's parents have a very different perspective, and that sounds interesting as well. Just sharing at that level is pretty important. And then you can bring in aspects of democracy. If these guys piss off the electorate, they're going to be out in the fall.
If I may interject right there,
Yeah.
something that comes to mind is the sort of model UN kind of structure, where in your class discussion, they're not all from Petersburg, Wrangell, that they're from all the different places representing the regions.
Very isolated.
Yeah, so taking on that sort of perspective coming into it for the student.
Well, maybe the classes could connect that.
Or have the classes connect, cross, yeah, for sure. Work on the project.
Joy Kennedy Grubus, the instructor here in town, under the resources page, under resources, there's lesson plan materials, and in there's a government activity on the Alaska legislature, and she wrote this 10 pages of material for an instructor, and basically that's what it is. It's a model UN. It's for a government class working through some of these issues. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Right on. Awesome.
Yeah. So that's on the site.
Are there some more direct application questions that you guys, as you're thinking about how this plays out in your classrooms?
I think my challenge is just to scale it back enough. What I'm saying is, I think my challenge is to scale it back enough. There's so much terminology. There's so many things that I just see on that interactive Excel that my students are going to be really have no foundation skills on. And so I think it's going to be great conversations, but I think it's really about scaling it back to be able to have those conversations. Does that make sense?
Establishing the foundation to move on forward. It's a very complex issue.
Yeah, I'd be curious, how many folks have students who are ready to start, students who in high school and look at something like this and start to make heads and tails of it, how long it takes.
Can you guys hear him back there?
Yeah, so I think the question was basically how does it go in terms of students digesting this kind of content? And the answer is it's variable depending upon the cohort. I think there was a AP Gov class that was up for the challenge. They hit the road running and chewed through it pretty quickly and developed some pretty sophisticated plans for the solutions. And then there was a freshman level Alaska Studies class that hit a pretty hard wall. Some of the content, the vocabulary was really tough for them. But
to be fair, Owen, some of the freshmen actually, I thought, did a better job than the senior class.
Yeah. So you're going to know your students best, and you're going to know when to scale back. So there's two things I'd say that. One is the light plan is a 3-day plan. It's pretty light. Even if you're just showing the videos, you're building awareness of the situation, and you have them go home and talk about what their parents think is going to be a solution. And then they come home and have students share their solutions. They're learning vocabulary while they're doing that. They're learning as diversity of perspectives, and then start to consider, what would be the next plan, maybe.
And to support the light version and the full version of lesson plans, the model does have 2 different versions you can interact with, the detailed version and the simplified version.
Yeah. Even if you just do a classroom exercise where you throw the model up on the projector and you say, okay, as a class, we're going to solve this model, and you go through, you kind of talk about each option. Even if you just did that for 1 hour, it's pretty interesting when you realize, oh my gosh, we're talking about $5 billion, and we don't have 20% of that right now. That's a pretty compelling assignment. And then you send students home to talk to their parents about, you know what, we're like $3.5 billion short, folks. So.
For sure.
But it's a good question, and it's like it gets to this fundamental question of, well, it is such a pressing question for Alaska's future, but even the general electorate, right, our high school grads, it's steep for all of us to figure out exactly what's going on.
Okay, we have another question for you guys.
Great.
Just for future planning on your part, is there any plans to take this to more of a web base so that it's not Excel?
We don't have any. Yeah, we don't have any plans ourselves to develop the model like that. But I did note that Arizona has a web-based model, and I wonder, maybe I'll be able to throw that up here and show that to you. It's quite an elegant model, and it obviates all the problems associated with trying to run Excel in the classroom. I'll get that. Well, maybe we answer another question.
I did also hear that GCI developed a model, and I'm not sure, that was maybe 2 months ago, it was around December or something. They developed a allegedly more user-friendly model. So we're kind of on our to-do list. This kind of slipped back to it's not our real job, really. So we're kind of doing it out of a labor of love, I guess, or a labor of concern. So
the comments in the background are this is awesome. This is, it's really, yeah.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, and like I said, it's a community effort. You can see some of the students' contributions there. To me, it's an easy win as an educator because it's such a timely topic. It's in the newspaper every day. It affects people's real lives. It affects people's future. So it's a good learning opportunity.
For sure. Any other immediate questions?
If you're an educator and you're interested in the topic, I know Greg, there's a Alaska Association of Economists or something like that in Anchorage, and I think of the gentleman's name. If anyone's interested, you can contact me. He's really interested in continuing to develop curriculum and develop programs, and he even has some money to facilitate those kind of efforts. It's a nationwide economics organization for educators, and he's very interested in seizing on this as a timely issue for Alaska. He got a little bit of trouble for our presentation there in Anchorage because it got a little political, and but he's still interested in.
Could you throw the name of that organization and maybe his name in the chat box?
Yeah, I'll get it.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. Greg Huff, and I'll throw it in there.
While they're doing that, anything else that y'all wanted to bring forward? Okay.
Thanks for facilitating the discussion here. We're sorry we weren't able to come down. Ironically, it's because of some UAF budget cuts as a result of our situation statewide. But hopefully we'll be able to get a conversation going about this.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
We wish you the best of luck in your classrooms.
Thanks.
And don't hesitate. We love to hear about this. We're still in contact with some other folks in the governor's office, and if you decide to run some of this material, reach out. Let the governor's office know you're doing it. Let them know you're engaging your local legislators, because it wouldn't surprise me at all some state officials are happy to come by, especially down there, you're a little closer to Juneau maybe, and sit in on what your students are doing. That is like another layer of richness to the experience for everyone, I think. So don't hesitate, and you can reach out to us. We're happy to facilitate that if that's hard in any way.
Right on. All right. Anything
Okay,
else,
folks.
ladies and gentlemen? All right. Thank you so much for your time.